Whenever you're ready. Oh. Oh, gee. For one more day. I'm gonna be the new police chief. Pardon? Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the Protective Emergency Service Committee meeting, September 26th. We call the meeting to order. Is there any of conflicts of interest? Seeing none. Approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Beck, second by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, August 22nd, 2023. Moved by Councillor Beck, second by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Is there any business arising from those minutes?
I do.
Go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, just item 6B, 282, 284 University Avenue. The structure previously had been determined that there had been a mutually acceptable agreement that has been reached, and the property owner was to demolish it no later than August 31st. 2023. We're September 26th, almost a month later, and the building is still there. Is there any, can you provide, I guess I'd direct this through the chair to Deputy Chief Kent, if that's okay. If you could provide an update as to where we are with that, and I guess why that has not been resolved.
Oh, yeah, go ahead there, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Chair. As far as I know, at the moment, there has been a demo permit applied for and issued. I'd have to just check on the dates of what the schedule will be for that. But I know there is a permit applied for and issued.
What's the typical turnaround time on that? Because I think, I guess what I was reading is that I thought that there had been an agreement made, which I would have assumed would have implied that the application for demolition would have been made. So here we are 4 weeks later and we're still at the same point.
Thanks, Councillor. I believe it's on schedule with the contractor, so I don't know the exact date of starting, but I do believe there's heavy equipment in place, and we anticipate that it's going to be in the near future. I just can't give an exact date.
Okay, because this topic will come up again. And I would appreciate a more specific answer as to where we are, because I don't think that's, given the fact that we've been dealing with this property in particular for quite a while, I think we should have a little bit more specifics than that, and I would like to have that for our next, I guess would be our next council meeting, which would be on the 10th of October, possibly. Or if there could be information even given beforehand, that might be good as well, too.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead there, CAO Lana. Elmer, sorry.
Thank you, Chair, and through to Councillor Beck. So the process was that an agreement was executed between the city and the landowner through legal. And it took a couple of weeks for them to secure a contractor in terms of availability. And then the next step was they had to apply for a demolition permit. So that demolition permit now, as far as we know, has been issued. So it's on this contractor now to get the work done, and we do anticipate that it should be any day that this work is completed.
Okay, that's better clarification. Thank you for that, CAO Eldner.
Are you okay with everything now, Councilor Wright? Thank you. Yeah, because we do see the machinery over there, and so it's basically just a matter when the contractor goes in and starts up the engine, I guess. Thank you for that. Where are we at here? Any other questions? Okay, let's go right into the reports. Fire, Deputy Chief Kent Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair, Your Worship. This operational report includes the time period of August 15th, 2023 to September 19th. General fire inspections occurred in this time period with 13. Inspections with hazard compliance orders were 4. Fire investigations, 5. Total number of emergency calls were 124 for that time period, with District 1 52 calls, in addition to Engine 1 having 28 calls in that time period, and District 2 with 35 calls. And fire inspector callouts were 9. During this start of September, regular weekly department training resumed, which included power line safety, trailer safety, pump operator, and emergency elevator safety, live fire training, as well as annual job performance reviews occurred. Department activities, we would like to recognize and thank all firefighters for their efforts and hard work, not just this time period, but continual day-to-day basis. The department held an award and a recognition event this past Saturday, September 23rd. We'd like to thank His Worship Mayor Brown, Councillor Ramsey, Councillors Bernard and McAleer, as well as firefighters and guests who attended this event. We also recently had 2 members, volunteer firefighters Richard Roper and Andrew Cutcliffe, retire from the Charlottetown Fire Department, and we'd like to thank them for their years of service. The department was also involved in events such as the Gold Cup Parade, PEI Shellfish Festival, Farm Day in the City, and this past weekend's Moonlight Bazaar. That concludes our operational report.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and being at the awards night, it was well run, it was fantastic, really. It was great. And there's only one error there, R-A-M-S-A-Y, for Ramsey. No, but it was great. It was well attended, well put on, as the mayor and I, and Councillor Bernard and Councillor McAleer were there. And the deputy mayor sent her regrets. Okay, thank you for that. Any issues or any questions for the deputy chief?
Mr. Chair, could I just follow up? I want to thank
Go ahead, Your Worship.
Deputy Fire Chief Mitchell for the event. It's a great way to recognize the volunteerism of our firefighters, first responders, and their families, because there's a lot of commitment from families on this job. I think it was Councillor McAleer was speaking to one of the firefighters, or maybe it was our Director of Community Services, who stated that last year there were about 600 calls. That takes you away from home, family, get-togethers with your extended family. So big shout out for the volunteers and our full-time firefighters. So could I just ask a question about the FUS, the Firefighters Underwriters Study? I'm just trying to get a little, and Deputy Fire Chief Mitchell, you may not be in a position to give me much, but I'm just trying to follow up on it because it's been out there and we're trying to get a report on it. Could you just give us an update?
Thanks, Your Worship. I know there's still information going back and forth to the Fire Underwriter Survey, and that's about all I have for dates and that type of thing, so I don't have anything concrete other than that to say, Chair.
Just a supplementary question on that. And so the FUS was, I think, part of what we're doing with our fire services in how we look at hiring more full-timers, full-time staff, and what will that imply, or what will their hours of operation be, 12, 24? So, the sooner that we get that, it'll be very helpful information. And another question I've been asking, and now I know we've just passed the call of, or not the call, but the probability of Hurricane Lee hitting the shores of Prince Edward Island and Charlottetown. Didn't happen compared to what happened last year about this time with Hurricane Fiona. But can we find out from the chief when we're doing that debriefing from Fiona so that we can, be part of an ongoing process to make sure that we're ready and equipped to take on not just hurricanes, but any climatic catastrophic event? Could you just take that back to the chief?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I will, and we'll get back to you with that information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief and Your Worship. And I'd like to say thank you for the operational when Hurricane Lee was supposed to hit here. They're working on it, and everybody was on call. Councilor Bernard, Deputy Mayor Yankoff, myself, and the mayor, and our CAO and everybody. So I'd like to thank you for being, putting, what's that word? Proactive, yes. So thank you for that. Like I know you spent your weekend, but it was great. Thank you. Okay. B, please. Chief Brad McConnell.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly, it's been a busy week or month for police services, and so therefore I want to start off our report with some good news. On October 10th at 4 p.m. prior to that month's council meeting, I'd like to invite Mayor and Council to join us here at the second floor of City Hall for this year's issuance of the Chief's Commendation coins and recognition awards. The Chief Commendation was created in 2022 to recognize exceptional police investigations, exceptional personal performance, outstanding work in the community, outstanding contribution to police work, problem solving, and innovation in our community. This year, I'm pleased to recognize the following recipients and their exceptional contributions. Corporal Tim Kaiser. Corporal Kaiser has amplified the principles of community policing and has strengthened the community trust through active and inclusive community collaboration. Throughout his 27 years with the Charlottetown Police Services, Corporal Kaiser has worked on many collaborative efforts to address community issues, has improved the quality of life of our residents while supporting his peers on the front lines. Most notably, Corporal Kaiser's work with our youth, his leading role in the development of our Healthy Me program to educate youth on many issues, including drug awareness, responsible use of technology, and bullying. I'd also like to recognize a second group of individuals. Deputy Chief Jennifer McCarron, Sergeant Alan Kelly, Corporal Brian Donnelly, Constable Mike Kennedy, retired, Constable Randy Curry, retired, Constable Reg Wood, Corporal Robert Larder, and Constable Brody Bonus. On the 9th day of September 2023, a decade ago, these recipients were part of a small group of detectives within the Charlottetown Police Services who initiated an investigation targeting 10 separate crime groups operating in our city and province. The investigation, Project Clean Sweep, spanned a four-month period and involved the use of a police agent. The goal of Project Clean Sweep was to create a wide-scale disruption of the illicit drug trade within our city and province, particularly among those involved in the sale of prescription drugs, cocaine, and crack cocaine. In the early morning hours of January 31st, 2014, the team executed the final stage of the project, executing Operation Blue Dawn, arresting 42 accused, conducting 16 separate search warrants in one day, seizing over $400,000 of illicit drugs, and laying 137 separate drug trafficking charges. As a result, Project Clean Sweep was the most impactful single drug project in our province's history. That achievement was never recognized before now, and I felt it was, a decade later, was certainly time to do so. So certainly would like to congratulate and welcome council, mayor and council to that celebration. I have a second report, Chair, on update to our downtown safety and community meeting that was held. Charlottetown Police Service held a neighborhood town hall meeting on Tuesday, September 5th, to discuss crime and safety concerns in our city. Charlottetown Police Services deliver services through a community policing model. In order for our community policing to be effective, we need to have ongoing communication with our residents and a collaborative approach to identify community needs and solve problems. The purpose of the meeting was to provide a policing overview of the current challenges, allow citizens to speak directly to police leadership team, allow the citizens an opportunity to share ideas on how we can improve our services, and to inform citizens of the relocation of police resources to the area. Residents were encouraged to attend, and officers went door to door, raising awareness of the meeting at the Birchwood Intermediate School Gymnasium. Approximately 400 people attended the meeting, 54 of which provided verbal testimony. Most of the testimonies spoke of the negative impact homelessness and drugs were having on their daily lives. Issues of safety and security undermined by drug use, property crime, and trespassing, and unpredictable behavior. In response to the concerns, as chief, I committed to dedicating a uniformed foot patrol in the areas of the Outreach Center and Park Street location, maximizing police visibility in the areas of the Outreach Center and the Park Street shelter, having zero tolerance for trespassing on personal property and private property, and a focus on senior and student safety initiatives. Our work continues in this area. CPS continues to engage stakeholders and residents while focusing on fulfilling its commitments. And we have received some favorable feedback in our efforts so far, but we know there's much work to do. I have a third report, Chair. Update on the review of the taxi bylaw. On August 31st, I hosted a meeting at CPS headquarters with the taxi stand owners and their driver representatives. Also in attendance was a key stakeholder, Don Allen, the Executive Director of the Downtown Charlottetown, Inc. All attendees expressed their support for the formation of an association that would represent the collective interests of the industry. This group will also review our current taxi bylaw and make recommendations. Our work and goal as part of this group is to bring those recommendations back to council for consideration. It was further agreed that we would invite Dave Buffett, the president of the Halifax Taxi Association, to come to Charlottetown to speak to the owners and drivers about the benefits of an association. A date has not been set for that, but is anticipated to occur sometime next month. And my fourth and final report, Chair, is regarding the dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly properties resolutions to council. Is to request approval of council to clean up the properties listed. Properties required cleanup, the combination of first and repeat offenders. Resident, the address of 63 Hutchinson Court, PID number 696880, and the address of 247 Mount Edward Road, PID number 390625. And that is my report, Chair.
Is 16 Hutchison Court and 231 Brackley Point on there?
Sorry, Chair, my correction, saw
Yeah,
that, see those
okay.
to the right. Those are also included, 16 Hudson Court, PID number 625079, and 231 Brackley Point Road, PID number 623090.
Thank you for that. No, like you didn't mention, so I didn't know if they're taking off the last minute or not, but thank you for that. Any questions to the chief? Councillor Beck.
Yep. Thank you for your report, Chief. And again, thank you for your work. And I know we've mentioned it several times. We know that last little while hasn't been easy for you. So certainly appreciate you hanging in there and doing what you had to do. So certainly appreciate that. Just on the, I'm going back to the follow-up on the public meeting. And when you were talking about in response, in terms of the response, the first two are, fairly self-explanatory. Can you elaborate a little bit more for me on the zero tolerance for trespassing, what that looks like, and what sort of initiatives are being entertained to focus for the student and seniors and student safety? Can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on that for me? I know they're general bullets, but maybe just a little bit of a deeper dive into that, just so we kind of have a better understanding in terms of what you mean by each of those points, or how that would look and how that rollout goes.
Yeah, certainly those are great questions. So the zero tolerance for trespassing on private and personal property, it really come to light, and especially during the door canvas leading up to the meeting. It became very obvious to me that we were inconsistent in our approach with residents on how our police services were dealing with these issues. And certainly hearing the impacts firsthand from residents, it was certainly, I felt the onus to provide the direction to staff to have zero tolerance, so there was no middle ground or uncertainty about how these incidents should be approached. If someone is trespassing on personal property, I think we owe it to residents to have a consistent and balanced approach, but certainly recognize the impact it was having, certainly in that area, and of the outreach center and Park Street areas. And so I wanted to give that messaging and give that reassurance to residents that that's the way we would be addressing issues going forward.
So what does zero tolerance look like? I guess is kind of my question. I appreciate the consistent approach, and I do know that was one of the major factors that was of concern, but it's one thing to say zero tolerance, but what does that actually mean? How does that play out?
Yeah, so zero tolerance is that if someone is found in violation of trespass, and there's different levels of trespassing, you can have different levels of severity depending upon the time of day, and certainly trespassing at night has criminal consequences because it can lead to other, and is associated to other types of behavior. But trespassing as generally under the Provincial Trespass Act is the issuance of a summary offense ticket that goes before the court. So on both levels of trespassing, we wanted to make sure that we were laying charges on all occurrences.
Okay.
Certainly the focus on senior and student safety, certainly heard from seniors in the area and parents of school-aged students that were attending the schools in proximity, that the oncoming school year was, and the issues in the neighborhood were much on parents' minds. So we wanted to certainly, again, put some messaging there that we were going to address these issues. So on the opening day of school, we had officers attend the school, providing orientation sessions and talks with students and teachers, and trying to educate and promote good practices and safe practices, and also talk about common sense approaches to dealing with some of the challenges that are faced in those areas. And also, we are in the process of setting up sessions with our seniors in the area. I've visited the seniors' homes personally myself over the last couple of weeks and talked firsthand with seniors. and provide sessions on personal safety, certainly some education surrounding some of the laws like trespassing and some of the issues around we're having around disposable needles and what we're doing, and just as an educational practice and to the seniors who are certainly impacted. So that's and our community policing section is addressing those.
This might be a little bit outside your scope for sure, Brad, but I've heard that there is staff from the local intermediate school have been actually doing supervision down around that area. Is that happened, or is that an area of concern? I guess I know it's more a school related thing, but and I don't know. Again, I'm only working on secondhand information, but should that be happening? Should that not? I guess as a former principal, I do have some, and I'm not, I just have concerns about that, but I'm not passing judgment in any way, but I guess I'm just kind of wondering, is that okay? Is it something that we should be encouraging, discouraging? I do not know the answer to that. I'm just kind of throwing out the question.
Yeah, certainly we never encourage people to put themselves in a compromising position. I think some of the realities and what's facing the school there is that the students are venturing into that area, and they feel a certain onus and responsibility, and I can't speak for them, but I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's happened to have overwatch of that, knowing that that it is a challenging situation. And so, certainly I can have my staff visit with the school to make sure that things are done responsibly in that area, because I think there is a balance there
Yeah.
to find. And but having again, and as a former educator, you would know the sense of responsibility for the students.
100%,
And
yeah.
so certainly I can follow up with the school on that, have staff follow up to make sure that that we're doing things in alignment as opposed to trying to do too much or.
Yeah, and that would be my general concern, is that, I wouldn't want to see any students in a vulnerable situation or staff in a vulnerable situation, and, if it's being done. And I appreciate that effort in terms of working, again, collaboratively, because they're trying to do the best they can. I fully understand that, and I appreciate the care and concern that's being demonstrated. I just don't want anyone to put themselves in a situation that they may not be equipped for, or may not be safe for them, or may not be appropriate for them either. So obviously you are aware of it, and when I heard about it, I put my administrator's hat on, I put my citizen's hat on, I put my counselor hat on, and you kind of think about it. But I'm glad that I guess I'm glad, Brad, that you're on top of it. And again, it kind of goes back to my original remarks. I really appreciate the level of care and concern that you've demonstrated throughout this whole process. And, I think people can be comfortable in the fact that you're dialed in on this, and you're doing whatever you can to make it happen and to make it work. So don't ever take any questions that I'm asking as any questioning of your ability or your commitment to this, but because I do fully appreciate that. It's just trying to keep that balance of making sure that everyone is protected and is safe, and as, I guess safety, really, just to make sure that we're doing it as well as we can. And I think we're in good hands, so thanks for that.
Mr. Chair?
Appreciate that, Council.
No, I'm done.
I just want to add
Go
to
ahead, Your
what
Worship.
Councillor Beck was asking. There was a rumor that the administration at Birchwood were telling students not to go to Ken's Corner. And I spoke to one of the teachers who's been there now the last 5 years. That is not true. So what staff is doing, and again, going back to Councillor Beck's former life as an administrator, council has, the staff has extended their duty from just the school grounds down to Ken's Corner. So staff go down there just to ensure that students are not hanging around there, or not mixing with anything that's going on there. And if there appears to be time to get them back, they're moving them along. So that's the process they're following. And I think the police or CPS, Charlottetown Police Services, would be a great assistance to be in that area around the noon hour, especially the noon hour, just to be part of the assistance that teachers are providing. And speaking to the staff member who you know, he said that we don't try to put ourselves in harm's way with any of the unwanted, excluded, unwelcomed members that are up there at the Provincial Community Outreach Center. Our job is to just extend our supervisory duties to make sure they're back to school in time and just not hanging around and loitering in that area. So I just wanted to provide some update. But again, I'm sure the CPS can follow up with the principal.
Thank you,
Of
Your
the
Worship.
school.
And when your fourth bullet there, Chief, is focused on seniors and student safety initiative. I have a granddaughter that goes there. She's 13, and it's funny, we were watching her older sister play volleyball the other night at the Rural, and I just said to her, was there someone in to talk to you students? And she said, yes, Granddad, it was great. You know, now whether they all abide by the whole thing or not, but that sort of reaffirmed me that, you know, like if they're going to go somewhere, they're not going to go that end, or they're going to stay away from the outreach center. So thank you for doing that too. Okay, any other questions? Deputy Mayor, you're awful quiet today. You're doing well, though.
She's in a listening mode, Mr. Chair.
Yes, that's
Listen.
great.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Okay, that's a surprise, Your Worship. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm just going back to the Chiefs Commendation Rewards. And when I look at September 9th, 2013, the investigation spanned over a 4-month period. A wide-scale description of the illicit drug trade within the city of Charlottetown, particularly among those involved in the sale of prescription drugs, cocaine, and crack cocaine. Chief, 10 years ago, and now we're 10 years later. Would that be the same order of drugs that are on the street now, or would it be more prescription drugs, prescription drugs, prescription drugs?
Your Worship, certainly our drug situation has evolved some. There's still a large amount of cocaine circulating in our streets and crack cocaine, methamphetamines, fentanyl, certainly. So it's, and I think you've seen that, especially with some of the recent arrests. I think our street crime unit last week alone conducted 3 separate search warrants seizing illicit drugs. And I can assure members of council and chair and your worship that our street crime unit seizes more drugs and than any other unit in the province, and does it consistently. And so although there's much work to do in that area, we are dialed in on that area also.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to get a clarification. If you're looking at drug seizures, would the largest portion or piece of that be prescription drugs, cocaine, crack cocaine, heroin, LSD, mescaline? What would be the top category? I'm just trying to get a sense of what we're dealing with on the streets.
Yeah, certainly there would be a lot of methamphetamine, a lot of cocaine seized, along with prescription drugs such as Dilaudid, heroin-based drugs.
And fentanyl, which is a prescription drug too.
Yeah.
And I want to commend the list that you named off there. Constable Corporal Tim Kaiser, Deputy Chief Jennifer McCarron, Sergeant Alan Kelly, Corporal Brian Donnelly, Constable Mike Kennedy, retired, Constable Randy Curry, retired, Constable Reginald Wood, and Corporal Robert Larder, and Constable Brody Bonus. Great to see that recognition it's not long overdue. Recognition is great at any time, so I appreciate that you brought these names and these honored recipients to our attention. Now, if I go to the downtown strategy, safety strategy, that meeting that took place on Tuesday, September 5th, I felt sometimes you were looking like you were in an interrogation room because you just stood there and took it all in and didn't react to the emotion that was expressed by some of the speakers. So I was quite impressed by the detail of safety that we had there in case, we had a repeat of July 19th down at the Confederation Center's Memorial Hall, which was not going to happen where we were on that night of September 5th. So it was well carried out. I'm waiting to see the results from the surveys that were handed out and I know passed into our officers at the door. It'll be interesting to see what will be some of the top priorities of what we need to address as a community and as a protective and emergency services. So it'll be interesting for not only going forward with this community police action plan that you introduced at that September 5th meeting, but I think it'll be very good news that we have a plan, we're trying to develop a plan going forward. And I want to acknowledge that we've been we have not been silent on this issue, not at all when it comes to the mental health crisis, the drug addiction crisis, the misuse of alcohol, or socioeconomic issues when it comes to unemployment and the homeless, the unhoused. We are speaking about it, and this was an opportunity for residents to come to the mic and express their views. And that also happened when we had our planning board meeting that was open to the public on the two issues we dealt with last night, where we allowed the public to come in and express their views on the major variants that were presented on September 13th. So, we're ensuring as a city, as a municipal government, we're keeping the debate open. We want to make sure that the discussion doesn't stop. The discussion has to continue because if you look at, for me, the biggest issues, the largest issue is the whole housing component. I keep saying that we need more public housing, more affordable housing, more social housing, more co-op housing, more subsidized housing. Those are the areas that area is so needed, and I hope hopefully we can all three levels of government can work in addressing that issue. So on that downtown safety strategy, I just wanted to add one other issue, and it's part of the downtown, is that we still have our scooter issue on the streets and sidewalks of Charlottetown. And if I can just ask Jill to put up something that was sent to me via text. In Ottawa, they have their scooters, and you can see on their scooters on the step, or the area where you have your 2 feet placed, it says no sidewalk riding. I think that we have to reinforce that with our the owner of this business, because I still see them on sidewalks, and so it's not only a hazard or a liability to the owner of these scooters, but also the driver, the operator, and pedestrians that could be hit by these scooters. We don't allow bicycles on sidewalks, nor should we allow scooters. So just something to keep in mind that we may want to pass on to the owner-operator of this scooter business. And I'm glad to see that we have a taxi stand owners issue that's being addressed by inviting Dave Buffett to speak to the local taxi owner-operators, because that's definitely a needed service in the city. And the last area I'd like to go to, Mr. Chair, we continually hear at council about the other dilapidated, unsightly, dangerous properties. And I know we did look at a list at one meeting, and then it was withdrawn because we needed more information or legal opinion on it. Now we're back to a list that we don't see. And I, for one, have the list that we looked at, not originally, but if I can just take it up here on my laptop. Can't seem to get it. It was 282, 284, then we looked at 20, that was 282, 284 University Avenue. Then we looked at, second in priority was 201, 203 Houston Street. And then there was corner of Kirkwood and, I believe, Queen Street. Like, are we getting ready to put on the table here at this standing committee another property that we have to address through possibly action here at City Council? Could I ask you that question, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Or,
you can.
Chair, could I ask that? through-
Yes, you can. Like, that was a long one question, Your Worship, but anyway. Yes, and that's what I was going to suggest too. Can we get a list of the next property from, and if we can get the police and the fire to work together on this? Because one was pulled off, because there is residents living back in there, I heard. And, like, we got to get together here, folks, and we got to have a list and look and see where we're going with this. And if it's a matter of our bylaw officer and our fire inspector sitting down with me or the CAO, but we got to be on the same page of this. And we just can't just do this one property and not look at other ones. And if we got to put in certain complaints about certain properties, as the mayor says on Kirkwood and Queen, we've been cleaning that property up for 20 years. So maybe we have to take further steps. So what we're looking for is a list again of what's the next property coming up, because we all know we're going to be asked about it. And I'd like to have an answer. So,
Well, Mr. Chair, it's not just being asked about it, it's about, we did draw up a list.
Exactly.
And we looked at a priority list going from worst to the least worst, and that's where I'm trying to get some guidance.
yeah, and what we're doing, we're putting PIN numbers and the addresses, no names or anything along that line. CAO Ellner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add to this conversation that there is a running list of challenging properties throughout the city. But when items come to council is when they come to council for demolition, for that motion to be made for demolition. So on that list, it doesn't mean every single property on that list is at the point of demolition.
Correct.
And that being requested of council. That list is ever-changing because sometimes the owners have indicated to us that they're renovating. Other owners have indicated to us that they're demolishing things themselves. So it's a matter of working with the different property owners. And it's quite a process that they go through, and it's recorded the whole way through the process. And by the time it comes to council, that is just when we've reached the end of the process. No action has been taken, maybe there's been no communication, and that's when that final resolution is being asked for demolition. So to be clear, it's not a list of places that are going to be demolished. It's a list of houses that we're looking at, properties that we're looking at for unsightly, and we're trying to work through. So administration can provide a list of what's being worked on, but it doesn't guarantee that any of those items on the list are coming for demolition until we come forward at the point in the process when it's appropriate to be asking for that resolution of council. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I want to clarify my position. I don't, if I was insinuating or making it sound that I was looking at the next property to be demolished, I wasn't saying that. What I was saying, I want to make it very clear. We had this discussion's been going on for several months, and as you know, Councillor Ramsey, it's been going on for 20 years with some of these properties. All I'm asking for, it's no different than what we've been asking the province on housing, on the safe injection side, overdose prevention side. Give us some milestones, some timelines on when we are working on these projects. Not about demolishing them, it's about continuing to beautify the community that we call home.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification, Eleanor, because I think that's important for us, for the other 10 elected officials to hear that same message. I think at the next council meeting, that would be a worthwhile message to give forth, because I can appreciate that there are changing factors that are ever evolving with properties, and we don't know. It's not our land, it's their properties. So I appreciate that clarification. I think that's important to be made, because I think there are some who feel that we are coming back with a monthly list of properties set to demolish. And that question will, I assume, be coming back once again, because it has been asked on multiple occasions. So I think if we could put that as a point of information, or whatever we call it, for our next meeting, just so we understand, that we get some clarity as a collective unit how that's working. And that we are not coming month by month with properties. It's an ever-evolving, changing process, and I think that would be a worthwhile time or worthwhile clarification to be given for everybody at the same time, so that we all understand and hear the same message at the same time. Thanks.
Exactly, and that's a great point, Councillor Beck, and I still refer to last month, there was a place on Nassau Street that our fire inspector went in and our bylaw officer went in, and they talked to the owner and everything. He said, "Oh, no, I'm working on it." So they were inside. It's all new walls and everything. So not every place is going to be demolished, as you said. But this is how we got to be explained to everybody in this room. Some are a work in progress. Some are still waiting for demolition crews. Some are waiting for contractors. So, if it's broken down, as the deputy mayor used to say, I'm in grade 6 language, maybe they all can grasp it, right? But every building's not going to be torn down. But we just want to, if they're sitting there and they're empty for 6 years and they're not safe, that's a different story. Am I correct? So maybe you can bring that up at the next council? Or I'll call on you, maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we could do is give you some information that you could provide as chair, and then
Okay.
if there's additional questions, we can certainly provide responses as needed.
So, Mr. Chair, again, for clarity, okay, the house that you mentioned on NASA, that's 20 years too, okay? The one that I mentioned as the second one in line for, or third in line for this committee or this council addressing has been in the queue for the last 20 years. So what I'm asking for clarity is give us some dates, some benchmarks on what are we doing each time that when I say we, the city, whether it's our police services or a bylaw enforcement officer, addresses the addresses that we have or the PIN numbers that we have on our list, what is the update? Because we can sit around here and talk about these properties, and you know what? I'd say in 4 years, we'll be still talking about them if we don't get some clarity on where we're going with addressing the issue of unsightly, dangerous buildings or structures in our community.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Chief and Deputy Chief, could you just take that back, maybe, make a note of that, and see where we're at, and have a roadmap, I guess, is a simple way of saying it, and then know where we're going, as the mayor stated. They're all great points. Okay, any new business? Councillor Beck.
Yeah, it's not my new business, but I had a request from Councillor McCabe to pass something on here for this meeting, and it's a question that she gave me, so I just wanted to, I guess, probably be going to the Deputy Chief. I think it was wanted to be asked at the last meeting, but we had 4.5 or 5 hour meeting, so I think it was not asked at that meeting, was the reason for it. I think Councillor McCabe was... Anyway, so the question is this, and I'll just read it from the notes that she gave me. She's requesting an update on the new hires for the fire department that were approved in our budget process for 2023-24. I understand that these hires happened back in April, but they are not yet working. The reason for this is that they are waiting for negotiations to finish. I guess I'm wondering if there was a need for these positions, and why is it that they are not working now? I appreciate that there are negotiations with the union happening, but we are now 5 months without these 3 needed positions. When can we expect these new hires to begin work? And the other question comment she had is she feels that we need to look at overtime versus costs to hire these people now, especially for general alarm calls. So through the chair, maybe to Deputy Chief Kent, if you could provide an answer for Councillor McCabe on that.
Thank you, Chair, Councillor. As far as I know, the hires were basically hired with the condition that the acceptable schedule was put in place, and that hasn't happened as of yet, work schedule, so.
But there's no time date at all, Deputy Chief, or anything, is there? I think this is what we're, and I had the same questions from some people too, like they almost don't have an income now because they left their other job because they were hired as a firefighter, and then all of a sudden they've been sitting there for 5 months. And I know it's contracts and unions and everything, but I mean, what are you supposed to tell these people?
Yes, it is unfortunate. There is negotiations underway with arbitration sets, so that's where we'll have to wait and see at that time, so.
I think the other question she had was, could they be hired like maybe on a temporary basis or fixed-term contract basis? And I don't know, maybe that's a question for either you or for CAO Eleanor in terms of that, if that is an option. And I think that's something, I didn't have that in the notes here, but I think she mentioned that too, is that an option, or does it have to wait until the negotiations are complete? Eleanor's chomping over there, so you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is something that needs to be left with administration in terms of the hiring, the contract, and the conversation involved with this. Council becomes involved with the outcomes of the union negotiations and some approvals there, but in terms of hiring and contracts, that's something that we have to work out internally. So we will definitely look at this and the concern that's been raised and see what we can do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Couldn't get the button out there.
I do have one item.
Go ahead, Your Worship.
I brought this up at our finance and administration, the last meeting, about the hiring of 6 additional officers. I'm giving that notice here also. If the chief can look in his budget, I'm sure it's pretty tight. But at last night's meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, with the first resolution that was passed, that entitles us to an additional 6 officers, or is it 4?
Go ahead, Chief.
Chair, Your Worship, it actually just amounts to 2 additional officers, so it would be extended funding for the 2 positions that are currently funded by the province, and then and for the housing component or the housing, it would be an additional 2 officers. So
That's 4. So, and these, again, through the chair to the chief of police or the CAO, this would mean these are new police officers that have been hired for a year, a 2-year contract. I'm just trying to get a pulse on what the hire is for. 1 year, 2 years? Could you explain that through the chair to the chief? Is that all right, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
yes, so it was a 1-year window of funding. So we would certainly have to, if that was approved, we'd have to bring that back to committee through council to create some understanding of what that really means and what that would look like a year out, and our need to either absorb those into our current budget, or other ways of trying to fund those ongoing positions past that year. We will not, given our current stance, we will not have enough room just through natural attrition to absorb them. So we would have to find or create some understanding on how we could carry those positions forward beyond the year.
So, Mr. Chair, just to go back to, I'm just finishing up. Just, Mr. Chair, just to finish up, or to complete what I'm trying to get at. If we're going after these 6, then these 4 could be absorbed down the road if we have to, but I'm asking that this committee endorses looking at our police services budget to find out if there's monies there, or and I'll be taking it back to our Finance Administration Committee because I already gave notice of motion that I would be bringing it forth. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Beck, second by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Thank you very much, folks, and have a great day. So, what do I got to do? There's no motion. Yes, we're still going. I need a motion for the unsightly properties. Moved by Deputy Mayor Yankoff, second by your worship. Thank you. All those in favor? All those in favor. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn this time. Thank you very much.